One-tricking a champion has been proven as the most optimal strategy to climb the ranked ladder the fastest. So in today's video, we're going to be providing you guys with a brand new update on 3 of the best one-trick champions for every single role. For a champion to qualify for this video, there's a few pieces of criteria they needed to abide by. The first is that their ban rate could not exceed 20%. High ban rates make it super difficult to successfully one-trick a champion, so if a champ is above that 20% mark, not being able to pick your champ every 1 in 5 games just doesn't feel great. Secondly, the champs in the video needed to either be strong in meta or have higher skill ceilings that make them strong the more time you put into learning them. And it's no secret that League's ranking system is designed to trap you. It pulls you in with those games where everything clicks and you carry hard, only to balance it with frustrating matches that feel unwinnable from the start. This cycle keeps you grinding, hoping for change, but never quite breaking through. What most players don't realize is that escaping this cycle requires specific skills and strategies tailored to your exact rank. That's where SkillCapped comes in. We're the only service in this industry that has invested millions of dollars into identifying what actually works at every tier. Our challenger coaches have mapped out the best and most useful strategies that turn hard-stuck players into consistent climbers, and you can access all this expertise for less than $9 a month with our annual plan. We're so confident in our method that our business model depends on your success. Climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped or claim a full refund. No questions asked. Stop wasting time on the ranked treadmill. Start climbing today with proven strategies designed specifically to break through your current rank. Check us out by clicking the link in the top right corner or in the description below. And with that being said, let's get into it. A top lane champion who we think is one of the best champs to one-trick in the entire game is Warwick. The thing about Warwick top lane is that he has such a unique style of play that heavily rewards knowing the champion's limits. The lower you drop on health, the more lethal your skirmish becomes due to Warwick's passive. So this means playing on the knife's edge is super important to succeeding with Warwick, and it's a skill that takes a bit of time to adjust to. There aren't too many other champions in the game who become stronger the lower they drop on health, so it's almost like you have to adjust your entire approach to the game when playing top lane Warwick. Here's a quick look at how you should be trying to approach the early game from our challenger top laner Strumpist.
Pretty much I just want to fight this guy, so I'm gonna go into the middle brush. I don't think I'm seen, and I'm kind of just gonna wait for him here, and then I'm just gonna try and fight him when he walks up to the wave. I actually think I don't want to let him really walk into the wave too much, because then he gets his Q stacks, and I don't want to let him get that. All right, not bad, not bad. So this volatility is good for me. And, well, there's no escape. He's just dead, because I have so much move speed. He's just dead.
So as we could see there, the level 1 completely shifted the outcome of the entire lane. Because Strumpist took that aggressive level 1 trade, it led to him having the health advantage and eventually being able to threaten for the solo kill. So one of the biggest things with Warwick is just not being afraid to fight your opponent early on. When you first pick up the champ, you're probably going to die a few times and just look absolutely boosted, but this is just temporary pain you'll have to go through to learn the limits of the champ and really take him to another level. Depending on the rank, Warwick's ban rate differs drastically, as it's up at 19% in bronze, but gets lower the higher the rank, and drops down to 3% in diamond, so he is still accessible regardless of rank, but definitely more so in the higher tiers of play. Depending on when you're watching this video, the meta build may have changed for Warwick, but as of 25.13, this is what you should be taking, as it's Stride Breaker with Blade of the Ruined King for the 2-item core, and then Lethal Tempo will be your Keystone Rune. Our second one-trick selection for top lane is going to be similar in theme to Warwick, as we've got Olaf. Olaf's ban rate is almost non-existent, sitting at 1.4%, so you'll have no problem playing him in almost every single game. The early game kill threat of Olaf is also amazing, so if you can learn the limits of Olaf, then you can absolutely smash the laning phase. Something to pay attention to with Olaf is that he thrives with the wave on his side of the lane, so letting enemies push into you and not just mindlessly throwing Qs at the wave is going to be important. Olaf's Q provides that slow and is on a very short cooldown, so the longer the lane you have to work with, the easier it is to chase down the enemies and beat them in an extended fight. If we have a look at this clip from Strumpist playing Olaf into Yone, we can see how he's already up a kill and is just holding the wave on his side of the lane. Now if Yone walks up to try and CS, Olaf has the entire lane to run Yone down and pick up a kill, so let's see how this plays out.
But I'm still ahead. Notice he's all, oh, what the heck are you doing here, man? Okay, so if I land 1 Q, he just dies. I'll probably go for it when he goes for the cannon. Notice I throw the Q like pretty much point blank. And then he's probably gonna have to flash. If he doesn't flash, he's just dead. And then notice I use my W at the very last second. If you don't use it at the very last second, then it's just not going to do that much for you. And you also benefit from being like low, because you get increased attack speed and lifesteal.
So one-tricking a champion like Olaf who can play aggressive like this in lane is incredible, because you don't have to sit back and scale and hope your team doesn't feed. You can take matters into your own hands, and once you've acquired enough knowledge on the champion, early solo kills will be of plenty. For Olaf's meta build, you should be rushing Stridebreaker into Sundered Sky second, and then grabbing Conqueror for the Keystone Rune. One-tricking champions who have incredible snowball potential can be extremely rewarding, and Riven is one of those champs. Riven is a champion who becomes exponentially better the more you understand her limits and her matchups. This is because the mobility that Riven has in her kit allows her to hard punish mistakes that the enemy makes in lane and easily threaten for solo kills. The thing is though, if you're not super familiar with Riven and her damage breakpoints at certain levels, then actually punishing enemies' mistakes isn't as viable. So this is why Riven is amazing to one-trick, because with all the mobility she has to offer, there's very little counterplay for enemies if you end up getting ahead early on, as you'll just continuously run them down if they try to walk up to farm. Riven's ban rate does fluctuate depending on the rank, but it's sitting around an average of 4% right now, which makes her very accessible to one-trick. There are two different core builds that are working really well for Riven right now. You can run the standard Eclipse into Sundered Sky, or what Korean Riven players are liking a lot more is a Sundered Sky into Cyrilda's Grudge core. Cyrilda's gives you the percent armor pen, so when up against a tankier comp, this is where it would slot in best, while the added durability from Eclipse is going to be better suited to fend off against squishier burst champs. And then for Riven's rune page, it's going to be Conqueror with Triumph, Haste, and Last Stand, followed by Biscuits and Jack of all trades for secondaries. One of the best junglers that you can one-trick for Season 15 is without a doubt Bel'Veth. In the past, and especially on release, Bel'Veth was a lot more difficult to one-trick due to her ban rate being so high, but right now it's leveled off around 2% as an average for all ranks, so it's a great time to one-trick her. Bel'Veth is a jungler who, if given an inch, can take a mile, and what we mean by this is that any sort of early game advantage that you can acquire with Bel'Veth goes a long way due to her ability to play hyper-aggressive when ahead. All the mobility in Bel'Veth's kit gives you a ton of agency over how skirmishes play out if you are proficient on the champ. It's night and day the difference between a mastered Bel'Veth player and a new Bel'Veth player, as the champ is just broken if taken to her limits, while she's pretty mediocre if not. Using Q to dodge skill shots, hitting W consistently, and using E at the correct moments are vital to get the most out of Bel'Veth, and if you mess any of them up, you can get punished a lot harder than most champs. Our challenger jungler Skillshot is a huge advocate to Bel'Veth and has 12 full game commentaries for Bel'Veth up on our website, so it's the place to be if you're looking to learn the champ. The meta build for Bel'Veth helps to make her a bit more forgiving as you run Stridebreaker second, and with the active slow it provides, lining up W and hitting that consistently becomes much easier. A lot of the time, the outcome of your skirmishes are going to come down to whether or not you land your W, so going for Kraken into Stridebreaker is really important. And then for the rune page, it's going to be Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, while Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter are for secondaries. A champion who tends to be rated lower on our tier list due to being a rather weak pick for the average player, but who can be absolutely devastating if you put a lot of time into him, is Rengar. The average Rengar player wins less than 49% of the time, but players who have over 50 games on him and are ranked Diamond or higher are winning 56% of the time. So why is this the case? Well, Rengar is a champion who is very feast or famine, and there's also a lot of vital decision making that goes into playing the champion optimally. If you don't have the damage to jump in and assassinate a squishy with your R, then the champ is pretty useless, so not falling behind early on and getting a snowball going is so important to win with Rengar, and most average players are going to have a more difficult time with that. As for the decision-making aspect, knowing how much damage you deal at certain item breakpoints against certain targets is so important to get the most out of Rengar, and this takes a ton of games to learn. When you dive in with Rengar, there's no backing out, so if you miscalculate how much damage you deal and don't end up killing your target, then you're a sitting duck. Most other assassins have some sort of escape tool after they've dove in, like Echo, Talon, and Zed, but with Rengar, you have to be a lot more calculated in how you approach fights. So overall, the game knowledge required to play a good Rengar is just much higher than that of most junglers, so one-tricking him is a really good idea. Once you put the games into Rengar and understand his limits, then the champ has so much agency over games because his invade strength is unmatched, and his catch power with R is incredible too, and those tools alone can solo win you games. The build winning the most on Rengar right now consists of a Voltaic Cyclo Sword Rush into Opportunity second and Lord Dom's third, followed up by Fleet Footwork as the Keystone Rune. A jungler who has been one of the best one-trick champs for a very long time and rounding out the top 3 is Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks Fiddle even just got buffed recently and is in an incredible spot for solo queue. Ban rate is sitting super low at only 3% as well, so you'll have no issues one-tricking him. Mechanically, Fiddle definitely is not as demanding as Rengar or Bel'Veth, as it's more so your decision-making on the champ that is going to allow you to excel the most. With Fiddle, it's all about playing off his R cooldown and getting the most out of every usage. Understanding which lane is best for you to prioritize and just perma-repeat ganking that lane is how you'll want to approach most games. With Fiddle's R, he's able to gank from very unique angles, so it gives him more opportunities to score kills than most other junglers. In the mid-game, it's all about trying to sneak into brush and unleashing that multi-man R when enemies try to face check into you. Objective timer tracking is going to be very key to get the most out of Fiddle, as arriving at objectives before they spawn and then catching out enemies who arrive late is how you'll find a ton of free picks. The build you need to run on Fiddle revolves around a Rocket Belt Rush into Liandry's second and Zanya's third, and then you should grab Electrocute for the Keystone Rune. One of the most powerful mid lane champions when in the hands of a one-trick is Uxin. There's just so much you can do on the champ, as his early game kill threat is great, dive power is incredible, roaming strength is amazing, so he's just the perfect mid lane champion to one-trick. The only downside to Uxin is that actually being able to play him at a competitive level will take you a bit of time, but that's why you should be one-tricking him. The sky's the limit with Uxin, as optimal E usage is something that won't come quickly, but once you got it down, there's so much outplay potential with the spell. Uxin E is such a unique ability, and you can tell right away if an Uxin player is new to the champ or mastered just based on how they are using the spell throughout the game. Champ is super oppressive with a lead as well, because the stealth he's got with W and long range gap close with E means that he gets to take complete control of the side lane, and if the enemy walks up too far, it's so easy for him to punish. Ban rate of Uxin is very low at the moment, hovering around 3%, so he's a very accessible pick. Meta build for Uxin consists of a static Shiv Rush into the Collector second and Infinity Edge third, while Press the Attack is the Keystone Rune. You also want to make sure you're taking Symbiotic Souls for your boots so that you can be as active around the map as possible. A champion who tends to be more popular as a jungler, but who's an exceptionally strong champ to one-trick in mid lane is Echo. Echo's ban rate right now is sitting around 4%, so it's at a pretty historically low point for the champ. With Echo being a melee assassin, his early laning phase can be a bit more difficult in certain matchups, but you're really just trying to scale up until level 7 to where you can begin one-shotting the ranged minions with your Q. At this point, you can start farming really easily and getting priority to look for skirmishes with your jungler. Farming efficiently with Echo is so important because hitting his item spikes as early as possible really unlocks the champion to completely take over games. When you have your Lich Bane and Nashers completed, you're able to take down squishy targets pretty easily, and especially when that Rabadon's comes in, you start one-shotting with ease. Just getting to those item spikes at a decent time in the game is the most difficult part, but when you get there, the champ feels so rewarding as you can dive in so aggressively on priority targets and look for picks due to the safety you have from R. Many Echo players still like to go for Rocket Belt as a core item, but your one-shot strength is way more limited compared to going for Lich Bane with Nashers, so it's not like Rocket Belt is a terrible item for him, but Lich with Nashers is superior. For Echo's rune page, you should be taking Hail of Blades with Sudden Impact, Sixth Sense, and Relentless Hunter, followed by Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm for secondaries. One of the more underrated mid lane champs that makes her very rewarding to one-trick is Naafiri. Naafiri is actually banned a decent amount, sitting at 14%, but that's mainly due to her strength as a jungler. Currently, Naafiri's play rate in the mid lane is only sitting around 1%, so one-tricking her gives you a massive edge up on your opponents. If your lane opponent is not used to playing against Naafiri at all, but you are familiar with the matchup, then you can just win lane off of that knowledge gap. The poke damage coming out of Naafiri Q in lane can hurt really hard, and if the enemy does not respect it, you can easily chunk them out and be able to threaten for early solo kills. The level 6 is where you really want to try and play with your jungler to find picks together. Naafiri's single target burst damage is amazing, so if you and your jungler have a target locked down, they'll just die in an instant. The standard build for Naafiri consists of an Eclipse Rush into Spear of Shojin second, while Electrocute is going to be the Keystone Rune. An ADC who, when in the hands of a skilled player, becomes one of the best later game ADCs is Aphelios, and he kicks off the top 3 for the role. Ban rate of Aphelios is just 3%, so at a very low level, which makes him great to one-trick. Skill ceiling of Aphelios is a bit higher than that of most ADCs due to the fact that he has multiple different guns that he needs to be able to manage, so one-tricking him so you can really learn the limits of each gun is going to be the best way to fast-track success in the champ. Aphelios is an ADC who's all damage and nothing else really, as you don't have a high-impact utility spell like Varus, Jhin, or Ashe, so positioning well and outputting high DPS in fights is what you'll need to do to impact games. You also don't have a gap closer, so this means your mechanics need to be on point with Aphelios in order to win consistently with him. That being said, the DPS potential of Aphelios is absolutely disgusting if you can land a multi-man R, so there's definitely a certain degree of risk to picking Aphelios, but the reward can be insanely massive. Something you can do with your build to help alleviate the lower mobility of Aphelios is running a Ghostblade Rush in games where enemy comps are more squishy. Going crit into tankier comps is the way to go, but into a squishy comp going for a lethality core works really well on Aphelios, so you've got some options there in regards to his build. Standard rune page for Aphelios is Press the Attack with Triumph, Bloodline, and Cutdown, while Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm are for secondaries. An ADC who's always going to be incredibly powerful to one trick and an absolute monster if played to its limits is Twitch. Compared to most other ADCs, you have more ways to impact games with Twitch due to his stealth factor. Capitalizing on roam timings towards mid lane or finding that catch on a priority target before an objective spawns are ways that you can impact games with Twitch that no other ADC can really replicate. Especially when looking for those picks from stealth in the later stages of the game, this is where knowing your damage output at certain item spikes is really key to succeeding with the champ. With most other ADCs, you can get away with not knowing how much damage you're going to deal at all times because they're not looking to 100-0 a target and will just play fights out front to back, hitting whoever you can. With Twitch though, if you pop out of stealth, use your R, and then you don't even end up landing the kill, then if an objective is coming up and you don't have R available, you're of way less use to your team. On the flip side though, if you can land that kill because you understand your damage from playing enough games of Twitch, that kind of play can solo win you games. So getting your reps in on the champ will really allow you to be more confident in the plays you make, leading to better execution and a lot more wins. Twitch ban rate is currently sitting at around 4%, so at a very good level to one trick. For the meta build on Twitch, you're going to run a Yuntal Rush into Infinity Edge 2nd and Hurricane 3rd and grab Lethal Tempo for the Keystone Rune. An ADC who's been a great pick all season long and rounding out the top 3 is Jinx. The fact Jinx has been S tier for the entirety of Season 15 while never having a ban rate above 5% makes her the perfect ADC to one trick. Of course, now that we say this, Riot probably goes ahead and nerfs her next patch, but if the trend continues, Jinx should remain a good pick for a while. With Jinx, you have some of the best raw teamfight potential for any ADC in the game due to her passive. If you can find that first kill in a fight and proc your passive, that it completely unlocks the champion to 1v4 from then on out. Like the 2 other ADCs we featured prior to Jinx, she's another who lacks a gap closer, so your mechanical skill needs to be more on point to succeed with Jinx, as she doesn't offer up anything of great significance other than pure damage. With someone like Ashe, if you just hit one good arrow and find a pick for your team, your damage output in the fight that precedes probably doesn't even matter all that much, but with the likes of Jinx, she needs to be outputting DPS in order to be impactful, so one-tricking her to learn her limits is the best way to maximize your potential with Jinx. The 2-item core of Jinx feels absolutely amazing as you're rushing Yuntal into Infinity Edge 2nd. For the rune page, you should be taking Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Cutdown, followed by Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm for secondaries. We've got a few unconventional picks that we'll be featuring for support, as playing these lesser-known champs, especially in the support role, is going to give you a massive edge up on your opponents. Nidalee is first up, as she's been a support who's been gaining in traction lately and can work really well if you put the time into her. So much of your skirmish power with Nidalee is going to come down to whether or not you can hit your Q on a consistent basis, so she's definitely a more high-risk, high-reward champion, which makes her great to one-trick, as once you get enough games in, that risk goes down and the reward goes up. 25.13 brought forth a buff to Nidalee's Q damage, and it suddenly made Q max on Nidalee's support a lot more competitive again. In 25.12, Emax was by far the best for Nidalee, but 25.13 onwards, there's a legit reason to max Q out now first because of its damage buff. It's really going to depend on the matchup and what spell you think is going to be of more impact for you. For example, if your ADC gets a few early kills in lane and you just want to be able to buff them up, going for E max makes a lot of sense. If you end up getting the early kills yourself though, or if the enemy bot lane is a more squishy ranged duo to where landing spears is going to be of great impact, Q max should be considered. Overall, you just got a lot of versatility with Nidalee support right now, as you can play her as more of a carry with that Q max or more of a support with the E max. The core build working best for Nidalee has you rushing Echoes of Helia into Moonstone 2nd with Dreammaker as the item upgrade, and then Aerie is going to be your Keystone Rune. One of the best supports you can one trick who our challenger player Rhino really enjoys himself is Gragas. We've seen Gragas played in the support role at a higher rate in the past, but right now his pick rate is only around 0.5% with a ban rate of just 1.5%, so those metrics make him really great to one trick. Chances are the opposing bot lane you're going up against has not played into a single Gragas support all season long, so if you understand how the matchup plays out, then the chance of you winning lane goes up drastically. The gank assist of Gragas support is absolutely incredible with his E and flash available, and we can see this in action in Rhino's recent full game commentary that he has uploaded to our website.
Most of the poke for my Aphelios. Okay, my Echo's coming in, so I'm just starting the play for him. Very nice.
If the enemies push into you like Karma and Jinx did here and your jungler ganks for you, then it's so easy for you to set up the gank for your jungler and pick up first blood. Level 6 is where it becomes even more crazy, as if the enemy disrespects you and moves up too far, picking them off with your R will catch them off guard more often than not. Rhino is literally playing in a Grandmaster tier game here, and the enemy Karma just walks up into him, doesn't expect the Gragas ult, and Rhino ends up getting an easy kill. This is the power of one-tricking a lesser-known support champion, as even elite tier players won't know the limits of the champion and will hand you over free kills because of it. And you may have noticed from those clips that Rhino was running Unsealed Spellbook on his Gragas, which has become meta on many melee supports after its recent buffs. For the build, a Locket Rush into Knight's Vow is standard, and then you should take Solstice Slay for the item upgrade. And then for our third and final one-trick selection for support, we have a more pure carry pick here with Elise. So Elise support is a new champ that has come into meta this season, and it's so impactful when in the hands of someone who knows the limits of the champ. Ban rate is sitting at just under 5%, so at a great level to one-trick. There's so much potential from Elise support, as her roaming strength is absolutely incredible early on, while her dive threat is the best for any support. What's really going to take your Elise to that next level is understanding when it's optimal to roam and when you'll want to stay in lane. A general rule of thumb is that whenever you're coming off of a reset, look to path toward mid lane and see if there's a play to be made. If not, you just path back to bot lane and don't really waste much time, but if there's a gank available, then you can get mid laner ahead early on and win the game without even having to win your own lane. Mid to late game with Elise, it's vital that your vision control is on point and you're controlling objectives, because you need to find catch plays with the champ, as her straight up 5v5 is not ideal. Picks from the Fog of War when enemies need to walk in to get to the objective is where you're going to find a lot of your kills with Elise later on. The build for Elise support has you rushing Storm Surge into Shadow Flame, and then it's Electrocute for the Keystone Rune. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for our latest update on the best champions to one trick. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.